Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well, having a good Wednesday. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's get straight into the news. And let's start with a bit of a heartwarming story in this whole heartbreaking situation when it comes to the tragic and sudden passing of AEW wrestler Brodie Lee Jon Huber. And it has been revealed by Tony Schiavone during his podcast that Brodie Lee Jr., the son of Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, has actually signed an AEW contract. Now, as noted previously, Brodie Lee Jr. defeated Kenny Omega to ceremoniously win the AEW World Championship a few weeks ago in a dark segment after AEW Dynamite had gone off the air. The 8-year-old son of the late Brodie Lee, of course real name Jon Huber, jumped on Omega's back and made the AEW World Champion tap out. It was also then announced by AEW ring announcer that Brodie Lee Jr. was the new champion. Now, as I mentioned, according to Tony Schiavone, AEW commentator and influential figure behind the scenes in AEW, on this week's episode of the What Happened When podcast, which Tony Schiavone hosts with Conrad Thompson, AEW have actually signed Brodie Lee Jr. to a legitimate contract with the promotion a few weeks ago, and plans are to have Brodie Lee's son on the roster when he grows older. This is what Tony Schiavone said on the podcast, quote, "Knowing Brodie was very sick and knowing it was holiday time, and I guess knowing that it was going to be very difficult for him to kick out, they brought little Brodie to TV and wrestling is his life." Now, Tony continued saying, quote, They made him a member of the Dark Order. They put a mask on him. He came out with a kendo stick. He beat up a lot of people. This, of course, was at a TV taping with nobody in the audience. They signed him to a contract. They legitimately signed him to a contract. And when he gets of age, he will be with AEW. Now, Schiavone also spoke about AEW protecting the news of Brodie Lee's worsening lung condition over the last 2 months. He said, quote, "I think everybody did a great job in keeping it close to the vest, as the old cliche goes. We all knew it didn't look good, but we were hoping that he would kick out. The day that he passed away, we received an email that we were going to have a company-wide Zoom call in 30 minutes, and I knew that if it was going to be a Zoom call that quickly, something was bad, so they told us about that." Now, he also shed some further details on Brodie Lee's condition. He said, quote, "Unfortunately, the AEW Uncensored podcast that we do, the one we did with Brodie, we did it the day before he got sick. Then we heard he had been airlifted to Mayo Clinic, and Amanda, his wife, came and met with the entire group and told us how bad a shape he was in, and please don't say anything to anybody. I think everybody did a great job in keeping it close to the vest." Now, the story about Brodie Lee's son, Brodie Lee Jr., and being signed to an AEW contract, and when I first heard the story of the segment they did after Dynamite went off the air and they had his son come out and beat Kenny Omega and became the AEW World Champion, it was such a touching and heartwarming story. And as I mentioned, during this whole time, I mean, us as fans, we're still grieving, we're still mourning. I personally am still in shock, so I just can't imagine what his wife, his now widow, his friends, his family, his young children, including Brodie Jr., are going through right now. It's the holiday time, it's the festive season, and to lose your father, your husband, your best friend, it's heartbreaking, and it's such a tragic situation. And I mentioned this on a couple of other videos we've done this week, in that AEW really does have to be commended on how well they've handled this incredibly difficult and tragic situation. The AEW social media page has essentially turned into a tribute, sort of mural of people sharing their memories, their thoughts about Brodie Lee and how he affected and touched their life. What a great man, father, and husband he was. They've got the tribute show for Dynamite tonight, which I'm sure will be a fitting tribute to the man that Jon Huber was. And to find out that how the lengths that AEW are going to help support his family, his wife, his children, having Brodie Jr. come out, win the World Championship, when maybe even, it's just such a heartwarming thing to hear that they're doing this, and it's heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, because what the family must be going through at this time is unimaginable. It's unimaginable, and it's very, very sad. And as Tony Schiavone mentioned there during his podcast, wrestling is this young child's life, and his father was a pro wrestler, and surely his hero, his superhero, and it's a horrible and tragic situation. It really is. So to hear that AEW have made the commitment to look after not only his family, but say, if this is your dream and you want to follow in your father's footsteps, we'll do it now. You can lock it in now, and when you become of age, we'll do everything in our power to make you become a pro wrestler and follow in your father's footsteps. It's incredible. It's incredible. And I'm sure also signing Brodie Jr. to a contract also adds some financial support to the family. That I'm sure AEW and Tony Khan, knowing the people that they are and the company that they are and how great they've been in this situation, they will look after Brodie Lee's family, and that is commendable as well. It's really commendable. So, as I mentioned before, they have to be commended on how well they've handled this situation. It's been incredible to see. As I mentioned, it's heartbreaking, but heartwarming at the same time. And seeing the tribute, seeing how people have reached out and supported the family, it's incredibly touching to see. It really is. Brodie Lee's wife as well has released another statement when it comes to the passing of her husband. Amanda Huber, the wife of the late pro wrestler Brodie Lee, has responded to certain wrestling journalists, and yes, I use that very loosely because they're not journalists, responding to wrestling journalists and fans and other people online and on social media who asked for more transparency regarding the death of her husband this past weekend. Now, in a lengthy Instagram post on her Instagram story, which was then later tweeted out by AEW star Cash Wheeler and other names, Amanda revealed that Brodie was tested multiple times for COVID-19 when he was hospitalized since the end of October until the day after Christmas, and she ensured that there is no cover-up when it comes to his condition. Now, I want to really read the whole statement. You can see it there on this side of the screen. Obviously, I don't know if you can, it's quite a lengthy statement. You might not be able to read it. So we'll read everything out here because I think everything needs to be said here. I don't want to read just excerpts from it. She said, quote, "Imagine being 17 and spending a night chatting with a mutual friend, then realizing that they were the one. You spend 7 years in an on-again, off-again relationship only to break up. Then you give it one last shot, one last try. You start therapy and really push each other to becoming better people. You date some more, navigate some crazy life curveballs. You then find out you're having a baby boy on the day he's downsized. Then an injury in the sport they love, but you fight through that. You get married and you have the most beautiful little boy. That day you find out they got their dream job, the job they never in a million years thought they'd get. You give up everything to watch them chase that dream. It pays off, and that world becomes everything. It gives you both everything you've ever dreamed of. You go on to build your dream life with another perfect little boy, 2 crazy dogs, and 5 cats. They get an opportunity to really bet on themselves, and you watch them shine like never before. Life is so good. Then suddenly one day that person gets sick. Each day they get sicker and sicker. You know how much they value their privacy, so you ask those helping to keep it quiet and out of respect for them. You watch helplessly as they get worse and worse. COVID test after COVID test after COVID test come back negative. You almost pray for a positive one because it would be some kind of answer. You never get one. Suddenly they're gone. You have to try and figure out how to imagine your future now. You then you read a journalist demanding transparency and insinuating you're hiding something, that it's some type of cover-up, something more so sinister, that you aren't serving his memory best by not offering up information you're still trying to process. As if his death was a public health hazard. It wasn't. It was a tragedy. There's no cover-up. There's no conspiracy. This is just a series of unfortunate events that ended in your world being crushed. What kind of position does that put you in? When you're trying to grieve and people practically expect you to post medical records because since they were a public figure, they are entitled to all the knowledge of what happened. It wasn't COVID. There's no shame in dying from COVID, but it's not what it was. You have no answers and you're just left there. Can you just effing imagine that? End quote. And I posted this on social media earlier because this was something that she posted overnight here in the UK. The fact that she had to post that, the fact that she felt she needed to post that because certain journalists, certain people online, certain people that consider themselves to be pro wrestling fans or just decent human beings felt the nerve to question that she was covering stuff up, that things were a conspiracy theory, that they demanded extra information. Oh, we need to know all the information about a private medical condition. We need to know that because I'm just being a journalist. I'm just being, he's a public figure. We need to know. In any other form of celebrity, this would be the case. BS. Now, I mentioned it at the time, but it's certainly become a bigger story over the course of the last 48 hours. And I didn't want to talk about this journalist. I'm not calling him a journalist, this person. I didn't want to talk about this article again, but it's become bigger and bigger. And the fact that his widow, he only passed away several days ago. It's the 30th today. He passed away 4 days ago. And 24 hours, 48 hours after his passing, you've got people questioning things. Oh, is this some kind of conspiracy? Is this a cover-up? Oh, we need to know more information. No, we don't. It's private. It's a private medical condition. I mentioned it at the time when it first came out. It was bad taste. It was wrong. It was morally corrupt. And then they had the nerve to try and cloak it in journalism or public interest. What BS. It was insensitive. It was crude. It was self-serving. It was disgusting is what it was. It was vile, and the fact that a grieving widow, mere days after her best friend, her husband, the father of her children, had passed away, felt that she had to come out and respond to people who are saying, oh, it's a cover-up, it's a cover-up. I get we're in a pandemic, but show some decency. Show some absolute decency. It's horrific. She felt the need she had to actually respond in this way. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And my sympathies go out to her, because on top of grieving that her husband's died, she now has to try and come out and say that she's not hiding stuff and she's not, complicit in a cover-up. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous that she felt she had to do that because of people that were led by this one person putting out these baseless claims. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And to see over the course of the last couple of days, this very same person, who we'll touch on in a second, has doubled down on these things and refused to apologize and refused to say, well, I'm just doing what my job is, blah, blah, blah. Oh, BS. Do me a favor. It's never too late to apologize. And as I mentioned on social media, your words and actions have consequences. So before you say anything, before you do anything, make sure you're kind, make sure you're considerate, make sure you think about what you're going to say and what you're going to do, because it does hurt people. And I just think the whole situation when it comes to that is horrific. And to be honest, the fact that it's distracted people somewhat from the passing of Brodie Lee is just a damn shame. It's a damn shame. Because people should be celebrating the life, mourning the passing of Brodie Lee, which the majority of people are. But the fact that now there is this slight section of people that are looking into this story, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So once again, my sympathies go out for his family, for his wife, for his children, because they don't need that. They don't need that whatsoever, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. Now, speaking of this, and I don't want to talk about this too much, but PWTorch specifically about this article have announced that they've parted ways with the writer of this article. I don't want to mention his name, but in this post by Wade Keller, of course, is the editor of PWTorch, announced that the man who I'm not naming, you can see it on the screen, is no longer a staff member of PWTorch, Pro Wrestling Torch. I spoke with him earlier today and let him know my decision as well as the reasons behind it. I thank him for over 30 years of contributions that helped shape and grow Pro Wrestling Torch. I'm not going to read that bit that's saying that he entertained readers, blah, blah, blah. He also, at the end of it, Wade Keller said, quote, I also apologize to the Huber family for any pain that the column caused, end quote. Now, as again, I don't want to talk about this too much. I mentioned it a second ago, and I've mentioned my feelings several times of how I feel about this article, this column. I think it's BS. I think it's disgusting. I think it's self-serving. It was bad taste, baseless conspiracy theories, and it was just vile to read. And I there's not much more to say about it. I think another thing that you do have to mention, though, is not only was the article that was written disgusting and in bad taste and morally corrupt, I think another thing that does have to be questioned here is the editing process and how it actually made it onto the site in the first place. Now, from what they've said previously, it was a case of he'd been with the website for 30 years and he just had, I guess, an unfiltered send out to the rest of the website. Nevertheless, that whole process I would think would need to be greatly reevaluated. And as I mentioned, I'm glad to see that Wade Keller made the right decision in letting the person who penned this disgusting article go. Nevertheless, it doesn't really change things how I feel about that situation. It's just, it's horrible. It's horrible, and that's what it is. It's absolutely horrible. Now, speaking of Brodie Lee, obviously Monday Night Raw, there was some tributes to Jon Huber before the show went on the air with the graphic that aired before Raw started, and various WWE superstars mentioned the yeah catchphrase, or it's Monday, you know what that means. Xavier Woods had the Brodie Lee armband, did the discus clothesline, etc. But there was a little bit of criticism when it came to WWE about not doing more when it came to the tributes for Jon Huber on Monday night. Now, according to, I think it's PW Insider, WWE reportedly filmed several tributes to Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, Luke Harper before Monday's Raw went on the air. Now, as I mentioned, this week's Raw opened with a graphic in memory of Brodie Lee, who passed away on Saturday at the age of 41. Raw also featured tributes from WWE Champion Drew McIntyre, Tom Phillips, Alexa Bliss, and Xavier Woods, plus a tribute on the Raw Talk from the New Day. Despite these tributes, though, there was criticism online, specifically from the likes of Impact Wrestling star Brian Myers, formerly WWE superstar Kurt Hawkins, who took to Twitter after the show and called out WWE for the lack of attention to Lee's passing. Now, it's now, as I mentioned, in an update, word is now that several tributes to Brodie Lee were filmed on Monday before Raw hit the air. This is according to PW Insider, but there is no word on when or where these tributes will be used. But there are obviously some kind of plans to pay tribute to Brodie Lee beyond the opening graphic from Raw's broadcast. Now, I this is interesting to me because, as I mentioned yesterday when we were talking about the news, I did feel they could do more. Raw's a 3-hour show. They have so many recaps and ad breaks, etc., and just dead air. I felt that they absolutely could and should have done everyone on the stage, do the 10-bow salute, do a video package. I get it. He's not currently with the WWE at the moment. I get it. He's not a WWE icon or Hall of Famer or legend. But he was with the company for 8 years, I believe, something like that, 8 years. And this is a tragic passing. This is a tragic passing in that this was a guy that died way before his time. It's a passing that's really affected the pro wrestling industry and the pro wrestling community, and people are still struggling to overcome and comprehend this tragic incident. So I think absolutely he more than justified having a 10-bow salute, having a video package, having people share their tributes to him on the show. That was absolutely, I felt, was necessary. Now, hopefully, given that they filmed all of these tributes to Jon Huber before Monday Night Raw, hopefully they do it on Smackdown on Friday. If they do it on Smackdown on Friday, then I can kind of understand that, because with Smackdown, you're going to have a larger audience. It's network TV, it's on Fox. Maybe that's what they're going to do. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt there where I shouldn't. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see till Friday. If they have time to put this right, put it that way. They have time to put this right. They can do it on Friday. Give AEW, I guess, the opportunity to do the full-blown tribute show tonight. He is an AEW, or was an AEW contracted wrestler. If they do it on Friday, then WWE, as I mentioned, they'll have more people watching, and they can do a tribute fitting to Brodie Lee, I guess, then. If they don't, and they just do a whole, we're going to do a documentary on the WWE Network, to me, that's not enough. They need to do something bigger. We'll have to wait and see whether they do that or not, though. We'll have to wait and see. Continuing with the tributes, Natalya has said that she will rename her spinning discus lariat after Brodie Lee. Now, this is a really nice tribute that Big E basically every day since the passing of Jon Huber has been sharing his memories about his close friend Brodie Lee, and been sharing stories and tweets about what a great man, father and husband he was. And he tweeted out that the former Luke Harper would jokingly feud with female superstars backstage, saying, quote, "Brodie's comedic rivalries with women always got me good. He borrowed Dana Brooks' poses, claimed that Natalya stole his spinning lariat and Michinoku driver, and texted me a picture, and it's a picture of Sonya Deville in the same suit that looks very, very similar to the one that Brodie Lee would wear on AEW Dynamite." Now, Natalya then responded to Big E's story, tweeting, quote, "This made my day. I'm going to rename the spinning lariat after Brodie." So it's going to we'll have to wait and see what she calls it. But again, it's just another fitting tribute. And this has really been one of the true heartwarming things, as I mentioned. After the heartbreaking element of Brodie's passing, what has been very touching to see is just the universal tributes on social media from everyone that knew Brodie Lee, even briefly. Everyone's got a fantastic story or just a touching moment that they had with him. And it's been really touching to see. It really has. And Big E's tributes have been phenomenal. Sometimes they've been super emotional, but last night when he posted the one of the side-by-side of him and Brodie Lee and Sonya Deville, that really got to me. So it's a nice and fitting tribute to Brodie Lee. Also, as well, when it comes to Brodie Lee, this is again just another heartbreaking element of this story is that Jon Huber was actually granted ownership of the Brodie Lee name just days before he passed away. That the United States Patent and Trademark Office issued a registration certificate for the trademark filing on Brodie Lee on December 22. Of course, Lee then passed away on December 26 at the age of 41. Lee filed for the trademark back on November 26, 2019, when he was still working for WWE as Luke Harper at the time. I hope that when it comes to Brodie Lee owning this name, hopefully this will now pass on to the family of Brodie Lee, his wife Amanda, obviously his children as well, Brodie Jr, you never know in the future, they can own the name. So when it comes to merchandise, royalties and anything like that, hopefully they can make some good money off of that and support the family that way. As I mentioned, I have no doubts in my mind that AEW are taking very good care of Brodie's family as well. But once again, it's just heartbreaking, just even these little stories like this, to find out that after the long journey he had when it came to getting out of WWE, he finally owned his name and then tragically passed way too early. And as days go by, I know it's going to be a long recovery process for everyone, not just obviously those immediately close, but even fans as well. It's a tough one to take, and obviously, Dynamite has the tribute show tonight, which I'm sure everyone will be tuning in to watch, and I'm sure that everyone at Dynamite and AEW will continue to do a fantastic job in paying tribute, fitting for the man that Jon Huber was. So, just, again, I mean, my words can't do it justice. It really is just a heartbreaking story. Let's talk about WWE. Because apparently reports are coming out now that WWE reportedly has another gimmick match planned for Randy Orton and The Fiend Bray Wyatt. Because obviously, as we can see on Monday Night Raw going forward, the feud between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt is not over just yet. WWE reportedly has plans for a big gimmick match between Randy Orton and The Fiend Bray Wyatt at the 2021 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Now, there's no word on what the stipulation will be yet, but according to a report by Ringside News, which I know, if you're a regular on social media, you know, Ringside News, yeah, to say the least. There have been lots of, stories that have come there that just have been ridiculous. But they do get some right sometimes, in fairness to them. Nevertheless, Ringside News reports that this will be, quote, another crazy gimmick match between the two Raw superstars. Now, of course, this week on Raw, it went off the air with Randy Orton teasing he was about to drop a match on gasoline that Alexa Bliss had poured all over and around herself. Now, it was noted that the cliffhanger ending has to do with this Wyatt versus Orton match, and there's more to come, obviously. Now, Randy Orton defeated The Fiend in the first ever Firefly Inferno match at the WWE TLC pay-per-view in December. Wyatt has been off TV since then to sour the attack, but Bliss has kept the feud going for him. Of course, the 2021 WWE Royal Rumble pay-per-view will air live on January 31st from the Thunderdome at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, in terms of what could this gimmick match be, I mean, what do you think it can be? You can let me know in the comments section below. I don't know how you top being set on fire in an Inferno match. I really don't see how you can top that. So, another crazy gimmick match? To be honest, the possibilities are endless when it comes to this one. I really don't know what it could be. It's going to be fascinating to see what they try and come up with, no doubt in my mind. I just wonder, how do you top the Firefly Inferno match? Because the story since then has been about setting people on fire. I mean, the cliffhanger on Raw was, is Randy Orton going to do the same to Alexa Bliss? So this is a good thing. It's a good thing because a lot of the times, right, I've said it before, lots of people have, WWE, when it comes to storylines where they're going, the direction for matches, etc., angles, is very predictable. It's very, very predictable. And this storyline, this feud, when it comes to Randy Orton and The Fiend, has been anything but predictable, really. No one saw the angle coming at TLC, and no one, I definitely can't see where they would go for this next gimmick match at Royal Rumble. Now, when it comes to gimmick matches, they can be very hit and miss, that's what I will say, but that angle, pun intended, is very hot at the moment. It's some of the best stuff on TV. I know people didn't like the angle, the way it went off the air for Raw on Monday. I didn't mind it. I thought it was creative and I thought it was different. I really didn't mind it. So I'm fascinated to see where they go with it. I really am fascinated to see where they go with it, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see where they go. It's up to the creative gods in WWE to see if they can pull another one off. We'll have to wait and see about that. But it certainly is interesting. We have some confirmation about the Smackdown ratings for Christmas Day as well. Now, as it was previously reported, Smackdown did a huge number for their Christmas Day broadcast on Fox, which of course was taped as well. But Friday's taped Christmas night edition of WWE Smackdown, featuring 3 big title matches advertised ahead of the time, and also had Big E capturing the WWE Intercontinental Championship from Sami Zayn in the main event, officially drew an average of 3.303 million live viewers on Fox. This is according to Showbuzz Daily. The final number is down slightly from the overnight viewership that was released on Saturday, which was an average of 3.336 million viewers. Sometimes when it comes to the overnights and the official numbers, they're not exactly the same. They do have to be tweaked. But the number is way up from the last episode to air on Fox, which actually drew 2.206 million live viewers. So you also you had essentially 1 million more live viewers tune in to SmackDown than was on the previous Fox episode on December 11. Now, Friday SmackDown drew a 0.96 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic, a 1.09 in the 25 to 54 demo, and a 0.68 rating in the 18 to 34 demographic. But the last network TV episode, as mentioned, that December 11 episode of SmackDown, drew a 0.6 in the key 18 to 49 demographic. So basically, every demographic I mentioned there, this past week's SmackDown absolutely destroyed it. And SmackDown's on Christmas night's episode drew the best numbers that the show has drawn since the premiere episode on Fox back in October 2019. This, of course, had a strong NFL lead-in on Christmas night as well, which also scored the best ratings for an NFL game on Christmas since 2016. So there are obviously a variety of reasons why this SmackDown did so well. First of all, you have to congratulate WWE, right? We're way too keen as a fan base to poo-poo all over them when they do a bad number for Monday Night Raw and criticize when they do a bad number. So first of all, congratulations. It's a huge success for a tape show on Christmas night. I mean, absolutely huge. That's massive. That's a huge number. So congratulations to them for that, no doubt. Obviously, there are a variety of factors as to why this did so well. Obviously, the NFL lead-in, as I mentioned, had the best ratings for an NFL game on Christmas in 4 years. That is obviously a big factor as to why they did so well. Particularly that first hour of SmackDown drew like 4 million live viewers, and the drop-off in the second hour was very large as well. So obviously, that leading from the NFL was a big factor in that. There's no doubt about that. Also, though, why it did so well is that they advertised it way ahead of time. We knew what we were getting way ahead of time when it comes to SmackDown. We knew we were getting the Universal Championship Steel Cage match, which kicked off the show, which is why I guess that was so strong that first hour. We knew we were getting an Intercontinental Championship match. We knew we were getting a Women's Tag Team match. So, obviously, advertising it way ahead of time and not rewriting helps the show. The show itself was very good as well. Obviously, and I think that's a massive factor as well, is that the show content was good. It was a good show, and Raw isn't a good show a lot of the time. So that is a factor as well. But it just does go to show, if you do a quality show, if you advertise it ahead of time, and yes, if you have a strong lead-in, it does help. You can do good numbers still in 2020 when it comes to pro wrestling on a tape show on Christmas. I mean, it's an incredible number, and WWE has to be congratulated for that. It's kind of bizarre to me, though, at this point, that this is the same company. So they do SmackDown on a Friday that gets over 3 million on an average live viewers for this episode. They can do a Raw on a Monday that gets 1.5 million live viewers. Why? They feel like not only different shows completely, but it feels like a different company. The quality and the content is so far off. It's crazy. But nevertheless, you have to congratulate WWE. It's a massive number. It's a huge success. And I'm sure Fox is very happy with that, because sometimes the numbers have been slightly suspect in the early days, especially the content was slightly suspect in the first few days for SmackDown on Fox. But really, ever since Roman Reigns returned back in the summer, that show has been a very easy watch. It's been a fantastic show, and credit to, obviously, all the performers, and credit to WWE and the creative team. When they do things well, you have to give them a thumbs up, so congratulations to them on that. We have a bit of update when it comes to Sting and his plans to in AEW, especially when it comes, or according to Jim Ross anyway. Now, Jim Ross has said that Sting will have a variety of roles in AEW and talks about Tony Khan's creative decisions. Now, during the Grilling JR podcast, Jim Ross talked about the AEW debut of Sting on Dynamite several weeks ago. Of course, Sting debuted in a segment on the December 3rd Winter is Coming edition of Dynamite to aid Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes. Ross talked about how wrestling fans always believe there's a conspiracy behind everything that happens. He also went into depth as to why Sting was hired and what he can do for the company moving forward. He said, quote, having Sting coming to AEW for the first time, what's really going on? What's really going on is Tony Khan reached out, hired Sting to a multi-year deal. He's going to have a variety of roles. I don't know what they are exactly, but they will be in a creative capacity where he's a character on television. There's a lot of ways to be a character on TV. That's been accepted by the audience nowadays. That doesn't include wrestling a match every week. I don't think anybody should wrestle a match every week. I think it's the kiss of death. You want to keep your talent as fresh and you don't want to overexpose them. There's a lot of things Sting can do. These conspiracy theories, they're rampant. We all thrive on this SH, you know the rest. What's the dirt? I don't know. If you come back in 20 minutes, I'll create something for you. When it comes to Sting and AEW, I don't think, well, if people are questioning why AEW signed Sting, then I would say, look at the ratings for the week after he made his signing. Yes, obviously the AEW and Impact crossover helped that as well, but AEW did a huge number the following week after Sting signed, and every time Sting is on TV for Dynamite, I think they do nearly over 1 million live viewers. That's why they brought Sting in. Unfortunately, when it comes to people talking about new stars, people being draws in 2020, modern day stars, Sting still is a name, Sting still is a draw, and I know people will go, well, what's the difference between Sting and Goldberg? Sting ain't going to become the AEW World Champion anytime soon and defeat the hottest superstar, let's say Jon Moxley, in AEW in 3 minutes. That isn't going to happen. Sting is going to get younger talent over. I think obviously he's going to be a manager or mentor figure for Darby Allin. There have been talks about having matches. I don't want to see him do that. I don't think it's needed. But I do agree with people when they say him coming out and just doing promos every week, there needs to be more. There needs to be more, but they can do more and they can do things without him wrestling. And I think AEW will do that. You look at how they've treated legends that have come in as coaches, whether it's Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, etc., Jake Roberts. They can do a variety of roles, and I do agree with Jim Ross there. So people that question, oh, why did AEW sign Sting? Because he can draw. Because he can draw. It's on TNT. It gets people talking. And he does still have something to offer. He absolutely does have something still to offer. So that's why AEW signed Sting. And finally, let's talk about a departure from WWE because WWE Senior VP Craig Tello has accepted the job of Electronic Arts. Now, it's been reported by some people that Tello left WWE for EA, but that report isn't actually accurate. Tello had been working as WWE Senior Vice President of Programming and Media Operations, but he was one of the names that was furloughed back in April due to the pandemic budget cuts. Now, he was never brought back, and on LinkedIn, he lists September 2020 as his final day of working with the WWE. Now, Tello announced on LinkedIn this week that he has accepted the job with EA. He said, quote, days left in this year of infamy, and I'm focused on not just starting a new chapter, but a whole new book in 2021. I'm elated to share that I have joined Electronic Arts, EA, as the new head of Marcom and content strategy within competitive gaming. I'm very, very grateful to be nestled within a senior leadership team filled to the brim with progressive, bright innovators. EA's head of broadcast, Joe Lynch, who previously worked with Tello at WWE, tweeted about Tello joining EA's competitive gaming team. He wrote, quote, very excited to have Craig Tello joining the EA competitive gaming team. We were together at WWE over 10 years ago, and I couldn't be more excited to be back together. Excited things coming. Brian Flynn, who currently works as WWE's Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, posted a congratulatory comment on Tello's LinkedIn announcement. He said, quote, EA just landed a lottery pick. Congrats. Tello responded, massive thanks, Brian, for the kind words and heavy support. Tello is actually a New York Times best-selling author, as he co-wrote Daniel Bryan's autobiography from 2016. He was first hired by WWE in November 2005, so he'd been with WWE a very long time. As a creative writer, after a long period of time with the company, he worked his way up into multiple roles over the years, and after that, content editor, senior multimedia manager, editorial manager, executive director, executive editor of WWE.com, vice president of digital content, vice president of digital and social content. He was appointed to the role of senior vice president of programming and media operations in March of 2019 and worked that role until the pandemic forced budget cuts earlier this year. So congratulations to him. It's not a salacious story like people are making out. Oh, he's jumped ship and he's gone to AEW. He's gone to EA, not AEW. So it's not a case of anything like that. It's just a guy that was furloughed and found a new job, so congratulations to him. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories we've spoken about here today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.